On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
John F. Kennedy meets a violent and world-shifting end in 1963, assassinated while traveling through Dallas in an open motorcade. His death, sudden and public, reflected both the optimism and volatility of the era. The early 1960s were marked by Cold War tension, rapid social change, and a growing media landscape that brought national events directly into American homes. Kennedy had cultivated an image of youthful vigor, forward-thinking leadership, and graceful statesmanship, qualities that made his assassination feel like a rupture in the nation's confidence. The manner of his death, captured in real time by witnesses and cameras, symbolized how vulnerable even the most powerful figures had become in an increasingly exposed and turbulent world. The immediate consequences of his death were profound. Shock spread globally within minutes, demonstrating how interconnected and media-driven society had become. Lyndon B. Johnson was sworn in aboard Air Force One, ensuring political continuity, yet the emotional impact lingered far longer. Kennedy's assassination accelerated several policy paths, including civil rights legislation, which Johnson pushed forward in what many saw as fulfilling Kennedy's unfinished agenda. Internationally, adversaries and allies alike interpreted the event as a critical test of American stability during the Cold War. Rather than diminishing his influence, Kennedy's death amplified his legend. His presidency, already brief, became mythologized as Camelot, a term popularized soon after by Jacqueline Kennedy. The tragic ending cast a golden, near-romantic aura over his leadership, shaping public memory more than his incomplete legislative record ever could. His image came to represent lost potential, the bright young leader whose life was cut short before he could fully reshape the world. Kennedy's assassination also revealed humanity's enduring fascination with mortality, power, and mystery. The endless investigations, theories, and cultural debates reflect a deep urge to understand and control the narrative surrounding such a seismic moment. His memory lives on in countless forms: memorials in Washington, scholarship programs, museums, biographies, and artistic portrayals that attempt to make sense of both the man and the tragedy. Ultimately, Kennedy's death underscores how society immortalizes figures not only through their achievements, but through the emotional void they leave behind. In remembering him, we confront the fragility of leadership, the power of collective mourning, and the human need to transform loss into lasting meaning. Mae West passes away in 1980 from natural causes following a stroke, closing the final chapter on a career that had challenged and reshaped American attitudes toward sexuality, censorship, and female autonomy. Her death symbolized the end of an era in which Hollywood's earliest rebels confronted rigid moral codes and strict studio control. Throughout the early 20th century, West had pushed boundaries through her bold, comedic persona, witty double entendres, and unapologetic independence. The quiet nature of her passing contrasted sharply with the flamboyance of her life, yet it also reflected a cultural moment when many of Hollywood's golden age icons were leaving the stage, marking a generational transition. The immediate response to her death was a mixture of nostalgia and recognition. Critics, filmmakers, and audiences revisited her films, She Done Him Wrong and I'm No Angel among them, both for their historical impact and their enduring sharp humor. Her passing prompted renewed discussions about Hollywood's censorship, particularly the restrictive Hays Code, which West had largely inspired by pushing its limits in the 1930s. The industry briefly turned its gaze backward, acknowledging how her boldness cleared the path for later generations of performers who embraced frankness, sexual agency, and comedic irreverence. Her death did not obscure her legend. Instead, it magnified it. West had already been mythologized as a symbol of self-made glamour and defiant wit. With her gone, the public's fascination with her persona grew even stronger. Her witty lines, "It's better to be looked over than overlooked," and her exaggerated hourglass silhouette remained part of American pop culture long after her voice fell silent. Artists, musicians, and filmmakers continued referencing her as an archetype of camp, confidence, and sexual freedom. Mae West's passing invites reflection on how society memorializes figures who challenged norms. Her life, and its quiet end, reminds us that mortality ultimately levels even the boldest personalities, yet memory allows them to transcend their era. Through restored films, biographies, drag performances, museum tributes, and academic analysis, West remains a cultural icon, reconstructed through the lens of generations who admire her ability to stir conversation and provoke change. Ultimately, her legacy illustrates humanity's desire to immortalize those who bend societal boundaries. We remember figures like West not only for what they accomplished, but for how they widened the space for others to express themselves freely, long after their voices fade. Michael Hutchence's final chapter unfolded in 1997, ending in circumstances that blended tragedy, controversy, and the intense pressures of celebrity. His passing was ruled a death by suicide, a moment shaped by emotional turmoil, personal conflicts, and the isolating weight of global fame. In many ways, the manner of his death reflected the darker undercurrents of the 1990s music world, an era that elevated rock stars to mythic status while offering little protection from the psychological toll of that elevation. In the years leading to his death, Hutchence faced mounting personal strain, legal battles involving his partner, career turbulence for INXS, and a series of deeply stressful events that left him emotionally fragile. The fact that such a magnetic performer, known worldwide for his electrifying stage presence, sensual charisma, and seemingly effortless confidence, could struggle so profoundly behind the scenes offered a stark contrast to the glamorous illusion of rock superstardom. His death exposed the widening gap between public perception and private reality, a theme increasingly recognized in the late 20th century cultural landscape. The immediate consequences of his passing were profound. INXS, already experiencing a slow decline, was thrust into uncertainty as fans and critics questioned whether the band could survive without its charismatic frontman. His death also sparked a broader conversation about mental health in the music industry, years before such discussions became mainstream. Mourning fans transformed Hutchence from a beloved rock figure into a tragic icon, his legacy amplified by the unresolved questions and emotional complexity surrounding his loss. In the years that followed, Hutchence's legend only grew. Documentaries, tribute concerts, and retrospective analyses reframed him not only as a rock star, but as a symbol of vulnerability hidden beneath fame. The global music community continues to honor him. Murals, tribute albums, and biographical films have all contributed to preserving his voice and persona. His influence echoes through modern artists who cite him as a model of emotional intensity and artistic authenticity. Ultimately, Hutchence's story invites reflection on humanity's complicated relationship with mortality and memory. We elevate artists to extraordinary heights, yet often understand them most fully only after they are gone. Through music, biography, and collective remembrance, Michael Hutchence remains immortalized, not just as a performer, but as a reminder of the fragile humanity behind the spotlight. Adele Jergens reached the end of her life in 2002, passing away from natural causes after decades spent largely out of the Hollywood spotlight. Her quiet departure stood in stark contrast to the vibrant, on-screen persona she cultivated during the 1940s and 1950s, when she was celebrated as one of Hollywood's quintessential blonde bombshells. The nature of her passing, peaceful, private, and free from scandal, reflected a different era of stardom, one shaped not by the relentless public scrutiny of modern celebrity culture, but by the studio system glamour machine that emphasized controlled images and carefully crafted personas. During her career, Jergens embodied the classic post-war American ideal, confident, glamorous, and larger than life. Yet as the studio system faded and Hollywood reinvented itself in the 1960s, many performers of her archetype saw their careers shift or disappear entirely. Jergens gracefully stepped back from public life, choosing family and privacy over the uncertain path of an aging star in a rapidly transforming industry. Her death therefore symbolized not only the end of an individual career, but also the fading of a cinematic era, one of technicolor exuberance, pin-up aesthetics, and the tightly managed star-making apparatus. The immediate consequences of her passing were relatively minimal in the public sphere. Unlike some Hollywood icons whose dramatic or early deaths sparked waves of shock and cultural re-evaluation, Jergens' departure prompted a quieter form of remembrance. Fans, classic film historians, and archivists revisited her work, highlighting her roles in films such as Down to Earth and Armored Car Robbery, recognizing her enduring place within mid-century American cinema. Her death thus amplified her legend in a more subtle way, leading to renewed appreciation of the actresses who shaped Hollywood's golden age but never reached the enduring superstardom of their contemporaries. Reflecting on her passing invites broader contemplation of how we remember figures from bygone eras. Mortality diminishes neither the brightness of their contribution nor the cultural value of the worlds they helped build. We immortalize stars like Jergens through restored film prints, retrospectives, classic movie channels, and the devoted communities that preserve Hollywood history. Her legacy reminds us that memory is not only reserved for the universally famous, it is also shaped by the quieter admiration of those who choose to keep an artist's work alive. In this way, Adele Jergens continues to shine, softly but lastingly, in the collective memory of cinema. Shemp Howard passed away in 1955, the result of a sudden and natural medical event. His death occurred unexpectedly while he was riding in a car with friends, collapsing without warning. This quiet but abrupt end stood in stark contrast to the boisterous, frenetic energy he brought to screen as one of the Three Stooges. In many ways, the circumstances of his passing reflected the realities of mid-century Hollywood comedy: long hours, relentless touring, and the physical demands of slapstick work that often left performers exhausted both on and off camera. Though not violent, his death underscored the pressures placed on entertainers during an era when the industry valued constant output over personal well-being. Shemp had rejoined the Three Stooges in the 1940s after Curly Howard's declining health forced him to step away. His return stabilized the troupe at a crucial moment, helping renew their popularity and ensuring their comedy adapted to the changing tastes of post-war audiences. When Shemp died, the consequences were immediate and significant. The Stooges still owed Columbia Pictures several shorts, and the studio's response, using a stand-in filmed from behind and repurposing older footage, revealed how rigid and demanding the studio system remained in the 1950s. Even in death, Shemp was required to perform, a stark reminder of how Hollywood often prioritized deadlines over dignity. His passing also reshaped the trajectory of the group. Without Shemp, the trio recruited Joe Besser, initiating a new era that fans and scholars still debate. While some audiences embraced the transition, many considered Shemp an essential link to the troupe's earlier brilliance. This posthumous re-evaluation amplified his legend. Once overshadowed by Curly's iconic persona, Shemp gradually came to be appreciated for his subtler comedic timing and improvisational skill. Reflecting on Shemp's death invites a broader understanding of how culture processes the loss of its entertainers. His life and passing highlight humanity's enduring desire to preserve joy, humor, and shared laughter, even in the face of mortality. We immortalize figures like Shemp Howard through restored film collections, documentary retrospectives, and generations of fans who continue to discover the Three Stooges. His legacy reminds us that while life is fragile, the laughter an artist creates can echo far beyond their years, becoming a timeless part of collective memory. Jack London died in 1916 under circumstances long debated but generally understood as natural, tied to kidney failure and complications from uremia. His final years were marked by declining health, an unsurprising outcome given the grueling physical risks he embraced throughout his life. London had lived with the same ferocious intensity that defined his writing. Long voyages at sea, harsh expeditions in the Klondike, and relentless work habits that sometimes produced over 1,000 words a day. His death, peaceful yet burdened by chronic illness, reflected the broader anxieties of the early 20th century, a time when changing industrial lifestyles brought both new opportunities and new strains on the body. His passing carried immediate consequences for American literature and political thought. London had been one of the most commercially successful authors of his era, bridging adventure fiction with sharp commentary on class struggle, individualism, and the contradictions of the American dream. With his death, the literary world lost a rare voice capable of appealing simultaneously to working-class readers, intellectuals, and young adventurers. Critics worried that American letters would suffer without his blend of raw realism and mythic storytelling. His unfinished projects, novels, essays, and political writings were left as fragments of an evolving worldview shaped by socialism, Darwinism, and first-hand experience with poverty and labor. London's legend only grew after his death. The ambiguities surrounding his final hours, fueled by speculation about medication and pain management, added a layer of intrigue, but it was his larger-than-life persona that truly flourished. His stories of survival and self-reliance became more than literature. They became cultural touchstones woven into the American identity. Schools taught his works as moral parables, while artists and filmmakers adapted his tales to reflect shifting societal values about wilderness, freedom, and endurance. Reflecting on London's passing reveals how humanity copes with the loss of its cultural architects. We immortalize figures like him not only because of what they wrote, but because of what they symbolized: the tension between civilization and nature, ambition and exhaustion, progress and peril. Through statues, biographies, archival preservation, and continual adaptation of his works, Jack London remains present in collective memory. His death underscores a timeless truth. While individuals fade, their ideas and stories endure, evolving with every generation that rediscovers them. Joanna Moore died in 1997 after a long struggle with lung cancer, a natural but devastating end that reflected the shifting public awareness of smoking-related illnesses during the late 20th century. Like many performers of her generation, she had begun smoking at a time when the habit was widely glamorized in Hollywood and largely unchallenged by medical warnings. Her death, therefore, echoed a broader cultural reckoning, an era when the entertainment industry was forced to confront its own role in normalizing behaviors that carried profound health risks. The immediate consequences of her passing were felt most strongly by fans who remembered her from The Andy Griffith Show, Bachelor Father, and a wide range of television and film roles that showcased her warmth, grace, and emotional depth. Moore had been a familiar face in American households during a formative period for television, when the medium was expanding rapidly and becoming central to everyday life. Her death prompted renewed interest in the women of early TV, talented performers who shaped pop culture but often battled personal hardships behind the camera. Although her career had quieted in later decades, her passing revived her legacy in subtle but meaningful ways. Viewers revisited her performances with a sense of nostalgia, recognizing how her characters captured the optimism and sincerity of mid-century American storytelling. Her death did not transform her into a global icon, but it did reaffirm her place within the cultural fabric of classic television. In that sense, her departure amplified the enduring charm of the era she helped define. Reflecting on Moore's death invites a broader understanding of how society remembers figures who were not titans of political or global influence, but were instead woven into daily life through entertainment. Her passing reveals our tendency to immortalize those who shaped our emotional landscape, actors whose presence on screen helped build shared cultural memories. Through syndicated reruns, fan tributes, digital archives, and biographies centered on the television golden age, Joanna Moore remains preserved not as a tragic figure, but as a reminder of storytelling's power to connect generations. Her life and death underscore a fundamental truth. Even those who step out of the spotlight continue to live on through the characters they brought to life and the feelings they left behind. Mark Leonard died in 1996 from complications following a brief illness, a natural passing that contrasted sharply with the futuristic worlds he helped bring to life on screen. His death reflected the generational shift occurring in popular culture at the time. As television transitioned into a new digital age, many foundational figures of earlier sci-fi storytelling were reaching the end of their lives. Leonard, best known for portraying Spock's father Sarek in the Star Trek franchise, belonged to a generation of actors who shaped the imaginative landscape of the Cold War and post-Cold War eras, an age defined by both nuclear anxiety and a growing fascination with interstellar possibilities. The immediate impact of his death was felt deeply within the global Star Trek community. Fans mourned not just the loss of an actor, but the departure of a performer who embodied some of the franchise's most philosophical themes: logic tempered by compassion, diplomacy amidst conflict, and the enduring negotiation between emotion and restraint. His portrayal of Sarek had become iconic, influencing how later writers depicted Vulcan culture and how audiences understood the subtleties of intergenerational relationships within science fiction. His passing also came at a moment when the Star Trek universe was expanding through new series and films. Without Leonard, future interpretations of Vulcan leadership took on a more solemn tone, shaped by the absence of the actor who had originated it. In that sense, his death quietly reinforced his legacy. It reminded fans that the franchise's emotional depth rested on performances like his, measured, dignified, and grounded in human experience despite their alien veneer. Reflecting on Leonard's death reveals how deeply fictional worlds can shape cultural memory. His legacy demonstrates humanity's desire to use storytelling to explore mortality, identity, and coexistence. Through conventions, restored archival footage, documentaries, and the persistent popularity of Star Trek, Leonard remains a fixture of fandom's collective imagination. His portrayal of Sarek continues to be referenced in new iterations of the franchise, ensuring that both the character and the performer are honored across generations. Ultimately, his passing underscores the truth that artists who help build beloved fictional universes achieve a unique form of immortality, one carried not only in film and literature, but in the shared, enduring dreams of the audiences they inspire.